What is a hymn? This is a question I've encountered a lot in worship ministry, and it's one that haunts a lot of worship leaders. Hi, I'm Dan Locke with The Worshiping Songwriter, where we are writing songs to glorify God and helping others do the same. Today we're tackling a question, what is a hymn? And it can be a tricky one, but the members of my Patreon, they were the ones who voted for this, and so they were given a list of topics that we could choose for theology and songwriting, and they chose what is a hymn. So Patreon supporters, this one is for you. Thank you so much for helping me do what I do, and I hope that this blesses you and helps you in your ministry. Now, before we go in, just quick change. The last theology and songwriting video I did, which you should go watch, I completely scripted. So every word was written out. I knew exactly how long it was going to be, and I could practice it like that. I'm trying something a little different this time. I'm taking a more casual approach, using notes like I might use as if I was preaching. So let me know in the comments below which style you like more, completely scripted or this more casual style. So with that out of the way, let's dive in. Because when you're leading worship, your congregants aren't going to come up to you and ask you, "Excuse me, sir, what is a hymn?" Instead, they're going to say things like, "We need to play more hymns," or, "Man, you're using way too many hymns. You got to play more songs." And you might be a little confused because that's the Sunday that you played some old hymns, and they still came up to you and said, "We need to play more hymns." Or maybe you weren't playing any old hymns, but it felt like a hymn because of the song structure. What is a hymn? Let's try to figure out. Now, I was down at the Southern Baptist Church Music Conference recently, and I had the great pleasure of sitting in a class with Matt Boswell, and I asked him, "What is a hymn?" He looked at me and he said, "Do you have a definition?" And he doesn't want to answer it for good reasons, because it's different for everyone. So, what is a hymn? It depends. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Theology and Songwriting with the Worshiping Songwriter. Oh, okay. You probably want a little bit more than just "it depends." But truth is, that's what the answer is going to be at the end of the video, because it depends on who's asking. With that in mind, I want to approach this topic from a pastoral perspective. You see, whenever someone asks you to play more hymns, what they're doing is revealing something about their past, their expectations, their hopes, and their dreams. And so this is an opportunity to learn more about the people that you are ministering to. And another caveat I want to say is I'm talking from my tradition. You're going to find by the end of this video, I like hymns. I lean hymns. I want the core of my songs to be hymn-like, but I like modern contemporary band arrangements, which sometimes doesn't work. Sometimes it helps bridge the gap between new ears and old words. But I'm talking from my tradition, and I'm in no way trying to say the only way to worship is this way. I'm just saying this is my way of going about it. So, this is an opportunity to know your congregation better. And without further ado, here's a whole bunch of ways that we can understand what it means when someone says, "What is a hymn?" Okay, first definition we have is going to be the music history definition. This is a religious song or a poem of praise to God or gods. Instantly, right off the bat, you should be going, okay, hold on, that's not a Christian definition. No, it's not, because the definition of hymn is broader than just Christianity. I have a book over here. It's the red one sitting in that box over there. My Burkholder, A History of Western Music. And in that, we find the earliest known composer, just composer in general, is known by the name of Enheduanna from 2300 BC, an Akkadian high priestess at Ur who composed hymns to the moon gods Nanana and Inanna. The text survives on cuneiform tablets. So, when your congregant, let's call him George, because that's what I have in my notes. It's no one in particular, but let's just say George comes up and says, "We need more hymns." This is not what he's asking for, but it might be what someone means when they say hymn. It's just the text of a song that's written in praise to God. We also have a biblical definition of what is a hymn because we have verses like Ephesians 5:19. Address one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord with your heart. What does this verse mean? It's not explicitly defined, so we have to interpret. And when you're interpreting this, there's two interpretations that I'll throw out there. One is that the Psalms are the book of Psalms. Hymns are songs that are to God, but they're not inspired like the Psalms are. And spiritual songs cover songs of personal experience. So in this one, the only texts that are found in Scripture itself is the book of Psalms. The other two cover songs that are not found in the book of Psalms. The second definition, which I'm more inclined to lean towards, is the book of Psalms is the Psalms. Other songs in Scripture, like Mary's song in Luke chapter 1, would be counted as hymns, or maybe Miriam's song. So songs not found in the book of Psalms, but are still found in Scripture. And then spiritual songs is our catch-all for everything else. So most of the songs in our churches would be considered spiritual songs by that definition. But if you ask George, and George comes up and says, "Hey, we need to sing more hymns," I don't think he's saying we need to go sing Mary's hymn. That's probably not what he means. Okay, so let's dig in a little more and try to figure out what would it actually mean to George when he says we need to play more hymns? Well, in my experience, one of those definitions could be style. And he's looking for a certain style of music from when he was younger. Perhaps it is a hymn leader standing up, waving his arms, and an organist and a pianist are playing. And that's what he means by a hymn. It's not a hymn if it isn't led in that style. So even if a modern band plays what we would consider an old hymn, it doesn't count as a hymn because it doesn't match the style of the song. Perhaps it's a worship song that has to be done in 4-part harmonies, and it's not a hymn if you don't have those 4 parts. This is the style definition. Or perhaps it's an era definition. In my experience at my church, a lot of times it means we want to sing Gaither songs. So something like Because He Lives, or going back to another song, How Great Thou Art, which is a song that's a lot younger than most modern worship leaders realize. How Great Thou Art is still in copyright, just to let you guys know. So maybe it's a certain artist that they sang when they were younger. They sang in church, an artist that they believe has substantial quality to their music. I'm pretty sure in 20, 30 years, Lord willing, if we're still here, a lot of us are going to be saying to the young whippersnapper on stage, "We need to play more Getty songs. Can you play some more of that Matt Boswell and Matt Papa, please?" And they'll look at me and go, "Oh, that's so quaint." But that's what the era definition would be. And perhaps it's a hymnal definition, as in only songs from a certain hymnal are hymns. Baptists, you know which hymnal I'm talking about. So all of these together, there's so many different ways that we can interpret what a hymn is. And which one are we going to settle on? Well, it really depends on who's asking. So the next time someone comes up to you and says, I would like to sing more hymns in service, take it as an opportunity to know them better. Are they looking for something from their past? Are they looking for a certain quality of song? Are they looking for a certain depth of lyrics? Because now let's get to how I define a hymn. And now this is not, I'm not trying to push this out as the end all be all of what a hymn is, but this is how I use the word hymn when I'm going to put together a worship set. So my definition of a hymn is a metric poetry sung in congregational worship. Let's dive into that and break apart each segment of that, because their words are specifically and purposely chosen. Metric. I don't mean that it has a time signature, because most of our songs have a time signature. What I mean is that the poetry has poetic meter. If you're looking in a hymnal and you look down at the bottom of the page and you see something like 8686, that's what I'm talking about, metric. And we can do an entire video on how to use poetic meter to write songs. I'm not going to dive into it right now. I'll save that for the quick songwriting tips videos. Okay, but in general, a song that is metric is going to be more hymn-like than a song that is not. And just one other caveat, these are all on a spectrum right here, this definition. So it's not like this is a hymn, this is not a hymn. It's kind of like, okay, we got a song that has a little bit of hymn quality over here. We have a song that has all of the hymn qualities over here. And somewhere in between there is all the songs that we sing. Okay, so it's going to be metric if I'm defining the word. It's also going to be poetic. So this is going to be a type of song that leans more heavily on poetic devices, like personification. The rocks cry out, like metaphors or similes, using all these different poetic devices in a kind of elevated speech. It still needs to capture how we talk, but it's a little bit more elevated than just our everyday use of words. It's sung. It isn't just a text for me. The music history definition doesn't work for me because it needs to be sung. It's not just words. And then it needs to be sung by a congregation. So congregational. And here's the thing about this word. Many times when we think congregational, we're thinking just of our own congregation. But congregational is defined by the congregation you're writing for. What's congregational for my church may not be congregational for your church. There are going to be some characteristics and qualities that make a song or a hymn have more mass appeal and be able to fit into more congregations, and we might call that more congregational. But a song written for your congregation to sing is by definition a congregational song. So I'm not just trying to put one style or put one way of writing songs out here to define congregational, but it's written for a congregation to sing. My culture is not the only culture, and God is glorified when many cultures gather together to worship him, every tribe, nation, and tongue. So write for your congregation in worship. Now, there was a definition I had said a little bit earlier that a hymn was written to God, and I think too much has been made of the distinction of songs to God being hymns and songs for us just being spiritual songs. I don't think that's a helpful definition, because I see worship as part of that twofold command. First, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Second, love your neighbor as yourself. I see those as a packaged deal. And so when I'm talking worship, this is vertical to God and horizontal, encouraging one another. Both of them have a place in a worship service. But essentially, We're singing to know and glorify God and singing to have communion with one another. And actually, communion is a great word for this. We're singing to have communion with God, and we're singing to have communion with one another. What is communion? That's another video. So that's how I use the word hymn. I define it as a metric poetry sung in congregational worship. But that's not the only definition, as we've seen, and that might not be what George is asking for. So, what's your definition of a hymn? Write it down in the comments below. Do you agree with mine? Do you like my definition? Could you use it? Have you had an experience like this in your congregation where someone was asking for a hymn after you just played hymns? Let me know in the comments below, but take it as an opportunity. Take this time as an opportunity to get to know your congregation better. And once again, this is a topic picked by my Patreon supporters, the Worshiping Songwriter on Patreon. If you want to be a part of future polls and helping decide what we talk about next, go ahead and sign up there and let me know what you want. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Theology and Songwriting with the Worshiping Songwriter, and I will see you around. Have a good one.